Hey guys, and welcome to season 4 of the Yes People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and in this season, we get to remember and reminisce back in time with some of our guests like...
Hey, we are Entity, and you're listening to
the Us People podcast
with Savia Rocks.
Hey, my name is Stephen Ridley, and you're listening to the Us People podcast with the lovely Savia Rocks, keeping it positive.
Hi, my name is James Green. I'm a TV presenter, sports reporter and journalist.
Hi, this is Joy Langley, and I'm the author of Navigating Stress.
Hey, this is Travis Glossop. I am a creative radio producer for Kiss FM, and you're listening to the Us People podcast with Savia Rocks.
We highlight the strengths of our cultures, talking about diversity and inclusion, and speaking out loud and proud about who we are.
I was never that good. I was determined. I had a love for the sport, and that always fueled me.
But arriving into London and kind of growing up in a really difficult situation, trying to kind of make sense of my life with with at home and not being accepted by the people around me, because there was, in the 60s, there was tremendous racism growing up in London.
It's great. I'm glad, because I'll be honest, I didn't really work that hard at uni, so it was good to leave uni and really get on it, really because I also, as a person, I think I value productivity. A lot of people live to work. I think I am one of the work to live guys, but because my work is amazing, that's all right with me. So as a person, I go to bed happy when I've had a productive day.
We've also saved the best till last by honouring another artist and showcasing their talent as our new theme song, with none other than your host, Savia Rocks, featuring in their song. So guys, enjoy, stay creative, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another. Let's go.
Hi, my name is Padma Aon Prakasha, and I'm a wisdom author, evolutionary guide, and sound wizard. Welcome to the Us People podcast with Savia Rocks.
Peace of mind. Gotta keep my energy and peace of mind. I protect my energy and peace of mind. Gotta keep my energy and peace.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Yes People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I am abundantly humbled to have Padma here with me, who is a wisdom author. I need one in my life. A sound wizard, he's laughing, transformational guide. Padma, thank you so much for taking your time to come on the Yes People podcast. How are you?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's very pleasurable and fun and heartwarming to be here with you.
I like when you said that. So my first question for you is, could you tell me about your background of where you grew up, but also how that influenced you to be the authentic person who you are today?
Well, it's like $1 billion question, that one, isn't it? Well, my parents were immigrants from India to England in the 60s. So that was a time of great change and transformation, both in music and in consciousness and in society. So they arrived kind of in the middle of that. And then I was born shortly after that. So being born in London and being Indian, I had one foot in the West and one foot in the East. I was, one of the first songs I remember listening to was John Lennon, Imagine. But at the same time, I was listening to all this Bollywood music, and then I got into a lot of Indian spiritual music, sitar, and so forth. And then I started to learn Indian music and play it and sing it myself. So I was had one foot firmly in each camp, in the East and the West. And that really led to, my dharma, my soul purpose, and everything that I'm doing now. That was really a kind of fundamental training on a really fundamental level of growing up with both sides of the story, East and West, spirit and mind, structure and chaos, all being kind of integrated and being normal to me. It's not like a shock. I can be in the most chaotic places in the world and feel totally fine and flow with it. And I can be in the most structured, clean, regulated places and feel fine with that. And I enjoy both, in different ways. But I think it's a real advantage to be able to be at one with chaos, and be able to really surf and ride that in today's world and feel totally fine. And in fact, even enjoy it. I enjoy the chaos. I find the order in the chaos, and I love flowing with that. And it brings me a lot of joy.
See, that's something I can definitely resonate with. My next question for you is, could you define who you are as a person, but also who you see when you look in the mirror? But on the flip side of that question, has there ever been a time where you have looked in the mirror and not recognized the person staring back at you? How did you manage to transform yourself from maybe not liking or loving the person that you want to become to becoming the person that you do or have become and evolved to be in a positive way?
Yeah, interesting question. First of all, I've always liked myself. I've never had a self-esteem problem. Some would say I had the opposite problem. And maybe I have had in the past, for sure, but life has definitely humbled me. And having a child and so forth, and obviously being deep on my spiritual path, I think love is the most humbling force. Anyway, the more love that you feel, the more grateful and humble you become. For me, I remember my birth. I distinctly remember it. And so from that platform of coming into this world, I've never felt jealous or competitive of any man or woman or God or whatever. I've never felt jealous or competitive, even in relationships. Like, if my girlfriend ever looked at another man, it wouldn't bother me. I'd be like, yeah, okay, if you want to be with someone else, be with someone else. It doesn't matter to me. And of course, that never happened simply because I was in my masculine and I'm very sure and confident of my own capacity and ability. And most people find that very attractive and actually safe to be around. Yeah. So for me, that was never an issue. But when I was born, I think probably the best way to explain this is the story of when I was born. So what I remember is that I was sitting on a lake. Before I was born in this world, I was sitting on a lake on a lotus leaf, which is my name, Padma. And I was naked. And I was sitting there in deep meditation. And then for some reason, I got up off this leaf and walked across the water to a hut on the shore. And the hut was a very simple, like mud hut. And it just had an entrance, a dark arched entrance. And I walked through that entrance and came out into this world, born in a London hospital. And my mother told me, she only told me like in my 30s, actually, of how I was born. I came out of her womb completely silent. And I had long hair, like as long hair as I have today. And I came out of the womb and my eyes were wide open. So the attending nurse called all the other nurses from the rest of the ward to come. So I was surrounded by 6 to 8 nurses who were watching me because I'd never seen anything like this kind of birth. And my eyes were wide open and I was looking around. I still remember it because it's still quite funny. I was looking around at everyone, eyes wide open. And my first thought was, what the hell am I doing here? Like, why am I back here? Like, what's all this about? And I was looking around and then, my mother took me into her arms and held me by her breast. And that was all very beautiful, obviously. But yeah, so that's how I was born. And from that point I've always really wanted to get on with things, like really fast, like get on with things. Like I'm here to do something. I'm here to get on with something. I'm not here to waste time or mess around or do this or do that. I'm here to get on with things. So let's get on with it, So everything kind of worked around that premise of like, I'm here to do my sole purpose. I'm here to do my dharma. And let's get on with that and do that as fast as possible, because then I can complete what I'm here to do. And that's, that was my first thought. And that will probably be my last thought when I leave this plane of existence as well.
Do you think you'll come back again?
For sure not. No. It's very clear to me what I have to do to complete my soul's lessons and my soul's purpose and my soul's service here on earth. So I'm very diligent and focused on that. And I actually don't do much of anything else, because I kind of see everything else a bit of a waste of time. As in, I have to stick to my soul purpose. And the more I do that, the more it will be complete, the more I will be happy, the more I will be fulfilled, and the more I can help other people as part of that journey. So I'm very focused in a relaxed way, but very focused on that. And I don't have really any distractions to that. And I don't really do things that are not aligned to my soul purpose. So that's quite a masculine quality, but a very useful masculine quality to have. But I'm quite relaxed about it as well. I have a lot of fun as well.
No, I can just see the energy. Just even as we're talking, we're both very relaxed people. And when you're interviewing someone who has a connection in that way, or where their soul is at peace with itself, which is one of the questions I always ask everyone, it's easy. It makes life easier. Your flow of life becomes peaceful and structured in the way that you want it to be, rather than in the way how people give their opinions of how they want your life to be, and that's very important in life, to find that balance. So let's talk about you as an author. When was the first time that you realized that words had significant power, especially to be able to reach, teach, and educate people in the world?
I won a lot of awards at school for writing, and I was actually, one of my first memories is when I was 6 or 7, the teacher from a class who was 3 years ahead of me asked me to come into her class and to read one of the stories I'd written to her class. So it was at that point I realized, oh yeah, I'm pretty good at this. I'm 3 years ahead. And when I was 9 years old, I was, from the age of 6 to 9, I was reading a huge amount. And I was reading a lot of philosophies. So I was reading all the Western philosophers, Nietzsche, Kierkegaard, and so on, Goethe. And I was reading all the Indian philosophy as well, the Bhagavad Gita, Mahabharata, Upanishads, and all of that. So I was reading all of that. So by the age of 9, I was tested. My reading age was of a 21-year-old university student. So it was something I loved doing. I loved reading. And from that naturally came an ability to write. And then I think that in my early 20s, I wrote my first book, which wasn't published, but my students I had at the time were very impacted by that book and very moved, and they learned a lot from it. So that kind of just gave me another impetus that like, oh yeah, I can see the effect this has, even if it was just a small group of people. And then my first book contract happened in a really magical way. I'd been given about $30,000 to write my first book, not by a publisher, but by a private sponsor who really got who I was and really wanted me to take the time, because obviously writing a book takes time, to take the time to write this book called The Christ Blueprint. So I did. I was giving the funding to do that. So I was in Bali before it became trendy, about 20 years ago, and just writing this book. And then shortly after that, I was in LA for some reason, I can't remember. And I was just walking down a conference corridor. I was at a conference, and I was walking down a conference corridor, and this woman just walks towards me. And it was one of those moments, where it's like the angels sang and the sun came out from behind the clouds, and then the nymphs wept. It's one of those kind of moments. And her name was Jaylene, and she was a book agent. And we just had this moment walking down this corridor, and then we just started speaking because it was just like one of those magical destiny moments, and we both felt it. And I said, "Oh yeah, that's great. Oh, you're a book agent. Oh, that's wonderful. I've just written this book." And she said, "Oh, well, you got to send it to me." So I sent it to her, and then I sent her another one, and I sent her another one, and so I got 3 book deals from her within a year. So it was I think that when something is your purpose, I mean, I got 1,000 stories like that, 1,000, probably more. Even today, I got a story like that. But things like that are normal for me. They're not like, "Oh, that's miraculous. Oh my God, you're so lucky." And it's like, that's normal. Anything else that's not that is not normal. That's how we're supposed to be living. This is living in the flow. This is when you're living in your soul purpose, in that flow. That's what happens. If you're not, then it doesn't happen. So it's like what Sufis say. It's like the Sufis say, I love the Sufis. I love what they have to share. But one of the things, Rumi was obviously a great Sufi. But one of the things the Sufis say is that if you're sick, you're sick because you're not awake. So if you're awake, you're not sick. If you're sick, it's because you're not awake. So that's how they see it. And I love that because it makes sense. It's like, well, obviously it makes sense, and that's my experience too, is like when you're in flow with your soul and what you are here to do, what God, source, whatever has given you to do here on earth, then everything will flow in the most miraculous of ways, but it will just become normal. It just becomes normal for me. And it's not like I expect it. It just happens, and it's normal. If it doesn't happen, then I question. I'm like, am I supposed to do this? Is this meant to happen? Because if it doesn't happen with that flow, unless it's something that's really, really important, like life or death, then I usually just leave it. I just go, okay, that's not meant to be. Something better is going to happen. So I never come from a place of lack or like worry or anxiety. It's like, okay, that book contract didn't happen because something better is supposed to happen. Or, that meeting didn't happen because I meant to have a better one. Oh, that house rental didn't happen because I meant to get a mansion. It's like, it's always next level. So there's never any, there's never any lack or fear in that kind of thing.
See, that's actually a really positive and optimistic way to look at life, because when you see it like that, then you know that something else will come and transcend to you and will happen. I always say that to people. The only fundamental thing I find with people, which I don't know if you agree, is a lot of people are so fixated on a door that has closed rather than the potential of the other door that has just opened really wide for them to be able to walk through and accept the gifts that await for them. But because so many people close the door on themselves and are very much, in tuned to the negative aspects of what's just happened to them, they don't concentrate on what's right in front of them. And I find that in relationships, friendships, whatever it might be, materialism, whatever it might be. So we have to learn to evolve our minds to be more optimistic. This is just my preference, and this is how I live, and this is what's helped me, and I don't know if it's ever helped you in that way before, but it's just something that I like to try and get an opinion on, because I find that it's really good to have other people's opinion on things to try and help people have a better mindset. How do you believe that people can have a better mindset towards their life and being able to manifest what they want into their lives?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, they found, and this is what social media preys on. Social media is a very pernicious thing because they understand the psychology of how the brain is wired. So anything negative draws more attention than the positive. This has been proved in neurobiology. So Facebook, for example, has a big neurobiology lab. I know because a dear friend of mine who I've made a lot of music with was invited to their lab in California. I think it's somewhere near San Francisco. And so he was invited to their lab, and this is what they work on. And they actually work on stimulating the back of the brain, the primordial brain, the cerebellum, and the reptilian brain behind that. They are actively targeting that, and they're looking to stimulate that area in order to sell their product and do whatever manipulations they wish to do. So, and it's all based around money, obviously. So, yeah, this is a part of neurobiology, and a lot of people take advantage of it. So actually, even knowing that people are taking advantage of it can also give us like a motivation or inspiration to go, yeah, let's overcome that. Why should we be a victim of this company or that mega corporation or, you know, that social media thing? You know, let's beat them. You know, in a sense, you know, we can overcome that. We can be victors and creators of our own life, and we don't have to fall victim to the manipulations, first of all, and we can overcome this kind of reptilian primordial brain programming, because it can be overcome, you know, as you know, and all it takes is a little bit of practice and a little bit of understanding. And once you practice it a few times, it can really easily be done. And a lot more joy happens. I think that's the main thing, you know, there's a lot more joy and a lot more fun that happens. And who wouldn't want more joy and fun rather than have stress and anxiety? It's a simple choice, really. I mean, come on. You know?
That's true. Oh dear. You know, you'll be so surprised in the world that we are today, because they're trying to stimulate people's minds, you know, in a certain way. But I always concentrate on the positivity, which you know, gets me to where I want to be, and I try to share that with everyone around me. So so my next one for you is, you're a writer of many books. You're not just a writer of one particular book. So I would like to talk about your most recent book and what inspired the concept, but also one thing I do love to ask writers is, how is their mental state when they are writing? I love asking this question.
My mental state is fully absorbed and fully dissolved into subject matter. I am obsessed. I am obsessed. There is nothing else going on apart from that. So I can spend like 8-10 hours a day, and I can spend 2 hours a day as well. It all depends what else is going on. But I become one with what I'm writing. It's not separate. And kind of the way I see a whole book, even before I start writing it, I see the hologram of it. So I see an actual holographic form. And then I download that holographic form and write it into words. So I can see the hologram in 1 second, but it may take me 6 months, or it may take me 20 years, as was the case with my last book, to download and transcribe, let's say, or write that whole hologram on words in the 3D, because obviously the hologram is multidimensional. Yep. So yeah, I get obsessed, and I feel like if you want to be excellent at anything, you have to be obsessive to the point of becoming great at something. I don't think that in any field of life, be it physical sports or emotional intelligence or mental brilliance or an inventor or a genius or a writer or a musician or an artist, whatever, or a businessman, or somebody who wants to be famous or make a lot of money, whatever it is, on any field, that person is obsessed with what they do, and they reach a standard of excellence through that obsession and practice and dedication of doing that many, many hours a day for many, many months and many, many years. So I've never seen anyone who's really great at anything, I'm talking really great, unless they've spent, 8-10 hours a day doing that for many years, not even months, but many years. And that includes meditation as well. If you want to get really good at meditation, you've got to do it for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got to do that for like a couple of hours a day, not like 20 minutes a day for 2 years. No, do it for 2 hours a day for a couple of years. Then you'll be getting somewhere, Then you can say, I'm a meditator. It's like the same with yoga, If you want to call yourself a yogi or yogini, do it a couple hours a day for 5 years. Then you can call yourselves a yogi or yogini. and everything that comes with that. So doing yoga, physical yoga, is just one thing, but then you have to study, you have to learn, you have to read certain things, you have to practice certain other things as well. Then you're a yogi or a yogini. You're not just a yogi or yogini just because you do yoga for an hour a day. That doesn't make you a yogi or yogini. So yeah, I think that if anyone wants to excel and be the best at something or very good at something, then that's what's required. And that's how I live my life. Anything I want to be really good at, I put my entire focus into. And because for me, my personal motto is anyway, that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do 100%, or I'm not going to do it at all. What's the point? I'm like wasting someone else's time and I'm wasting my time. It's like, forget it. It's like, thank you, but no, thank you. It's like, I want to be 1,000%, or I'll just go and sit on the beach, It's nicer.
That's true. It is definitely nicer. So you were talking to me just a minute ago about, one of your books taking 20 years.
Yeah.
To write. Now that is a process within itself. I would love for you to be able to talk to me about the goal and the research of why it took you that amount of time. I understand the process, trust me. As a writer, I understand the process. But for people who might want to start out being writers, I would love for you to break down the concepts of, because I know there's someone listening to this and be like, why did it take so long? And I know people have different attention spans, and like you say, if you're going to go into something 100%, you're going to put 100%. But can you talk to me about the goals, the research, uncovering the pinnacles of healing, culture, and so on and so forth into your book?
Yeah, good question. So my latest book is called Shiva's Hologram, the Maheshwara Sutra. And this is a very rare and unknown sutra from India and from the Shaivite tradition. And it's only being kept within India. So I think in 1999, a colleague of mine and a friend, Peter Harrison, who owned Golden Square Books, which was London's kind of premier Vedanta non-duality bookstore, we were friends, and then one day, in his kind of classic style, old school style, he was an elderly man at that time in his late 60s, he passed me a copy of this book called The Sounds of Shiva. And I looked at it and I was like, that's a great title. That would make a great album. Can you imagine The Sounds of Shiva? And he said to me, this is the Maheshwara Sutra. And then he told me about it, and I was like, wow, that sounds really interesting. So you're telling me this ancient sutra, which no one has ever heard of, tells how the universe is created through sound. And it tells you the entire science of how the universe is created through sound. And I thought, wow, that's amazing, because I was a musician and I was deeply into sacred sound and sound healing even at that time. So I thought, this is great. This sounds amazing. So I opened up the book and started to read it. And within like 10 seconds, my whole body started to vibrate, literally. And I just started to laugh. And my vision went all blurred and my body was shaking. And I was like laughing. And there's like light bulbs popping in every cell in my body. And I thought to myself, wow, there's something going on here. And then it just went from there. And then I started to write a book about it, write a commentary about the sutra, because I thought this is so important. And I knew that I was supposed to write it. I knew that it was part of my soul purpose to write it. So I started to write it and write a commentary on it, which happens after the dance of Shiva. So I think everyone knows about the dance of Shiva, the dance of destruction and recreation. But what very few people know, because this has been kept secret within the Indian Shaivite tradition lineage in India, of which I am an initiate of, I'm a member of that lineage. What people don't know is that after the dance of creation, comes a recreation of life. It's like version 1.0, Shiva Nataraja, the dancer, dances on and destroys. But then he recreates it. Version 2.0, the remix, the next level, the next octave of the human being is revealed. So that's what the Maheshwara Sutra, Shiva's hologram, is about. And all of that happens through sound vibration. So particular sounds create particular parts of your body, of your chakras, and then also on a macrocosmic level, the planets, the stars, the elements, the quantum field has specific sounds to it, and what arises out of the quantum field, which is, of course, is a physical universe and our physical bodies and what we can see and taste and hear with our senses and so on. So all of that is really explicitly described in the sutra. So when I read it the first time, I was like, this is amazing. This is like a spiritual science from 2200 years ago, given directly by Shiva, that tells you all about the quantum field. It tells you how everything is created through sound, and it gives you the sounds of each part of you. I thought, this is like amazing. Like, no one's done this, and no one could even imagine something like this. Everyone knows, yes, everything is vibration and the quantum superstrings of creation. Like I think most people kind of intellectually understand that, or have heard that everything is sound and everything is vibration. But this is the original teaching on it. This is the original sutra. This is like the beginning of how this became into our consciousness, and how it came into the consciousness in the Indian tradition, and then that came into the consciousness of the Western tradition, because a lot of what is known in the Western world today was first discovered in the East by Buddha and Krishna and various other sages and Upanishads and all the mantras and everything like that. So, it took so long. It took so long because I had to raise my level of vibration to match the sutra, or come into resonance with the sutra at least. And so that took some time. And then I also needed a huge amount of time to write it. And I didn't have that time because I was too busy writing and teaching all over the world. So, and also, thirdly, there was a timing for this wisdom, for this knowledge to be released into the world.
I understand that one.
And that is about now. It's actually, the book is being released in October, but actually the timing is meant to be in like November or December. So it was multiple layers of things, of reasons, but I had to do a huge amount of inner research, as in going into very deep meditation within myself to really decode, decipher, translate, and understand what was being said in the sutra. Yeah. And then also I had to do external research as well, because other people, other experts had looked at certain parts of what was being said and had, very masterfully explained that. So I had to do some research on some of the top names in the field of Vedic metaphysics, Indian spirituality, some of the best people in the world, and learn a bit from them. And so I could understand more of what the sutra was saying, and then share that with people as well. So it was like inner research and outer research. So, and then obviously that takes a lot of time. So when lockdown happened, that was a signal to me that, okay, I can't do anything else now. Let's do this. So for basically 2 years, I spent between 6 to 10 hours a day working on this book, almost every day. And that's how long it took me to get it right, because I had to do real justice to it. I mean, this was coming from Shiva and all the greatest Indian masters who are mentioned in the sutra as learning from the sutra. So for me, I really wanted to pay my full respect and my full attention to doing the best job that I possibly could of explaining this and sharing it in a way that people could understand for today, but also being very honoring of the source and being in very much in integrity with what they were sharing as well. So I had to I really deeply from my heart wanted to do justice to it, but also make it very accessible. So it took time to do all that and to explain it in a way that people would understand today as well. So yeah, it was a real labor of love, but a real labor of dedication and, to the divine, and real labor of dedication to people, so that people could really receive this in a way that is understandable and that they can use, that people can practically use and elevate themselves, elevate their frequency, raise their vibration today. So that took some doing.
I understand the process. I understand. So in there, when you were talking about sound, the one question that did come to my mind was, if there was one song that was the soundtrack of your life, what song would you choose, and why would you choose that particular song? Oh.
I think there'd be two. It's not a famous song, so I don't know if you know it, but one would be a song by the Dead Can't Dance, Lisa Gerrard, called, I can't remember the name. And the other one would be Silence.
I like the Silence one.
So I would have both.
Yeah.
The Lisa Gerrard one with Dead Can't Dance is so heartful and beautiful and uplifting and moving. And then the other one would just be Silence, because those two are, for me anyway, the essence of life.
See, I completely understand. So the next one kind of transcends into something slightly different. So it's a question where I say certain words. You have to pick a word that evolves with you and you can talk about it. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Let's do this. So power, perception, culture, judgment, class, privilege, diversity, race, justice. Which one would you say resonates with you, but also which one would you like to talk about?
Oh, can you just quickly say them again?
I'm not allowed.
Oh, okay.
I can do it for you.
I would say power, and discernment would be my answer, and detachment. So I feel like most people on the planet are scared of power.
True.
And are scared of, first of all, their own power, and the power of external people, authorities, governments, etc. Or even in a Christian religion, so-called God. The fear God is a big Christian mantra. You got to fear God. I'm like, why? I love God. Why should I be scared of it? Or her, or him, or whatever it is. So I feel like with the wielding of power, there's great fear around it because of the history of humanity and what has happened in the past. And I'm not just talking in the last 50 years or 100 years. I'm talking 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 years. I'm talking about racial memory. I'm talking about genetic memory. I'm talking about collective consciousness memory. I'm talking about these deep, intangible, subterranean rivers of influence that impose themselves on people's subconscious and their ancestry and in their DNA, and that guides their life in this with this invisible hand, and that they're not even aware of, but it's guiding you nonetheless, and it's informing your choices and decisions. So then it comes down to free will. How much free will do you really have? Most people don't have much free will because their free will choices are dictated by their woundings, by their conditionings, by society, by their parents, by their racial memories, by their genetic memories, by the collective consciousness memories. It's all being guided by that. So unless you excavate those memories, unless you heal your family, you heal with your ancestors, you heal with the deeper parts of what's gone on, 7 generations, 14 generations, the country where you were born, the country where your ancestors came from. Unless you deal with all of that in some way, you're going to be a victim of it. It's going to guide your choices. So you're never really going to have free will, which means you're never really going to be empowered, which means you don't really have the power. You're going to listen to someone else, or you're going to follow the government blindly, or you're going to listen to some spiritual teacher who you believe knows more than you, or whatever it is, whatever the excuse, whatever you're looking for in mummy or daddy that you didn't get is what you're going to look outside to some other authority or whatever it is. So, so power is a really multifaceted, multi-layered thing. And I've really investigated it, and you can't have power unless you have your own free will choice.
I agree.
And you can't have that unless you're sovereign. You can't be sovereign if you are following anything or anyone, including your family and ancestors. And a lot of that is so deeply subconscious that you will not know it's happening until you confront it, you dive into it, and you heal and reconcile and resolve it. So these are really deep subterranean rivers of influence that guide 99.9999% of people's lives. And literally, I can say there's only a few thousand people alive who have really healed all their ancestral and family wounding. True. Like gone all the way back, 14 generations back. Is like the maximum impact genetics can have on you. They recently found this out scientifically through the experiments on the human genome. This is what science itself has said. You have to go back 14 generations in order to completely clear. The Native Americans say you have to go back 7 generations, and so do actually the Indians as well. But it depends how much trauma has been in your ancestry.
That's true.
If your ancestors 10 generations ago were murdered, raped, persecuted, booted out of their country, drowned, pillaged, whatever, and no one from 10 generations ago to you has bothered to heal that, and you are the most spiritual one in your family, you are going to be the one who's going to have to deal with that.
Yep.
So you have to go back 14 generations, and that's what I've done. And I have to say, it was incredibly painful. It was.
It sure is.
Yeah, so it was so painful and so beyond my mind, and so beyond anything I could imagine. It's unimaginable. You can't even imagine. Like, even talking about it now, I'm using words. It's like, this doesn't even touch it. It doesn't even touch what I had to experience and the way I had to experience it, the traumatic ways I had to face this. So I'm really glad that I've done that. It was very traumatic to do it, but in so doing, I released that trauma. And so I could really come into a true sovereign power, not a forced sovereign power or an egoic sovereign power or a rigid sovereign power or a masquerading sovereign power, because a lot of people think that because they're in an ego, they're being sovereign. No, that's totally different. That's not sovereignty, as in the self with a capital S. It's a self with a small s. That's just you being your ego. You're just being like everyone else. There's nothing sovereign about that. You're just being selfish. Just deal with it. Yeah. So sovereignty for me is that, and that is power, and that involves deconstructing, dissolving, healing, resolving, reconciling all those subconscious influences so you can actually be in your true power. And that is discernment, and that ultimately is detachment as well.
You know what? That's one of the best answers I've had.
Oh, thank you.
It is actually one of the best, one of the best answers that I've actually had. So my next one kind of resonates with that, but just in a different way. If I was to say to you, if you could choose one quote that represented you as a person. Your face is so funny when you did that. If you could choose one quote which represented you as a person, what quote would you choose, and why would you choose that particular quote?
I don't know if it's a quote from anyone else, but it's definitely my one. Do everything 100% or don't do it.
Yes, I agree.
That's what I live my life by. That's probably the number one rule, beyond anything else. I don't know. That's my own quote. And why is that? Because I found that that's how things work for me.
Yeah.
At least, anyway. If I pour my passion, all my energy, my heart, my love, my dedication, my devotion, my totality, and I give something the best of every part of me, then I am happy. Then I am fulfilled. I am satisfied. And there's no regrets. It's like, yes, I've done the best I can.
Yep.
And I know that's good enough because I know I'm really good. And I know I am what I do. I'm one of the best at, and I have total trust and confidence in myself, not in an egoic way, but just in a, look, this is who I am kind of way. And I found that if I just pour everything into it, then I'm going to do something really well anyway. If I don't give my everything, then I'm not going to do it well. Exactly. I want to do something well. Otherwise, what's the point? So if I pour everything into it, then I can walk away from anything and be totally detached. That's also the freedom. It leads to freedom. I'm totally free. If I've given my all, I can walk away even from something I've spent 20 years doing. I could walk away from that book. And I could just go, okay, to my publisher, delete it. I'm not going to do anything to do with it. You know what? Because I've done it and I've done it really well. So I can walk away, head held high, no regrets, and I have no attachment to it whatsoever. And that's what I found with everything. If I give my 100%, I have no attachment to it. I am completely detached. And I love that because it's freedom. And I love freedom. You know, it's like that's what we're here to be, freedom and sovereign. Yeah. So for me anyway. So I just find that in the giving 100%, I am sovereign, I am free, there is no attachment. But if I don't give my 100%, if I give like 80% or 90%, then there's an attachment there for me. I feel this tendril, this cord, this tentacle of attachment that keeps me stuck to something. And then I'm like, God, this feels weird. You know, like I feel an attachment here. And then I feel like weird emotions around that. And then I'm like, God, that's odd. So then I like, oh yeah, because I haven't completed it. I haven't finished that work or that relationship or that project or that whatever it is. I haven't finished it. That's why it feels weird. And then when I go and finish it and complete it and give my all to it in whichever way, in a relationship or a project or a car or whatever it is, once I've done that, then I'm like, yeah, it's done. And even if my outcome that I want is not there, I still feel good about myself. Yep. It's like, yeah, I'm done. I've done it. Good. Okay, great. Now I can walk away and something better will happen.
See, that all makes complete sense to me. I think a lot of people are trying to find that balance of knowing what 100% is, and some people give 90 for certain reasons, but you are completely right about giving 100%. So I've only got two more for you. My second to last one is actually one that I kind of believe you've answered in a way, but I still want to ask you the question. So it's, when was the last time you remember feeling totally at peace with yourself?
Today.
It's good enough.
Most of the day.
It's good enough.
Every day. Most of the day.
I think once you find your purpose in life, you automatically find that peace too. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like, the purpose is definitely part of it, but then having done the healing, the deep inner work, I think also leads to that. I feel like I'm at the point now where actually, if I was to do nothing for the rest of my life, I would still be at peace. Whereas before, I would not be at peace because I was like, oh, I have to do this. I know I've got to write this book. I know I've got to do this teaching. I know I've got to help this person or whatever it was. But now I feel like even though I know it's not true, I know there's still quite a lot of things, well, not a lot of things, there's a few things I need to do to complete my life, to complete my soul purpose, to complete my evolution as a human being, as a man, as a father, as a lover, and whatever. There's few things I still need to do, which are all in process. And I'm tracking the progress and process of that. And I know there's still more to come. But I feel like with the soul, with the service part of it all, I could walk away from that and be content within myself as well. So, whereas before I couldn't say that. There was a real drive to like, yes, I've got to serve, and yes, I've got to do this. And there's a passion with that as well, but there was a drive. And now it's like, yes, I know I'm going to still be doing that and helping people, because that's, to me, that's what love does. If you have an overflowing of love, it naturally wants to extend itself to other people and help other people. It's just how love is. So I can't stop that, and I don't want to either. But I'm just saying that there's no compulsion in that anymore, whereas before there was a compulsion in it, like I have to do this. Whereas now there's not. It's like, yeah, I'll do this and this is great. Or I won't.
Fair enough.
And that's nice. That's nice because there's freedom in that, there's total freedom in that.
I think one of the words that you said in this interview quite a lot is freedom.
Yeah.
It's the freedom to be yourself. It's the freedom to have your purpose. It's your freedom to find healing. It's your freedom. And that plays a significant part in, I think, educating people as well.
Yes.
The key word being freedom.
Exactly. And, the term enlightenment or awakening is actually not the correct term, because it's actually mistranslated from the Sanskrit, from India. The actual term is moksha in Sanskrit, and moksha means freedom. It means that you still have an ego, etc., but you're not attached to it. You use it as a tool, as a servant, as a slave. So I always call the ego the slave. The soul is a servant, and the I am, or the divine, that is beyond an individual soul, is a master. So to me, the ego is a slave. It does what I tell it to do, and I don't give it any attention, and I don't pay it any money. I don't give it what it wants. It's like, you do that, you're a slave. That's it. You do your job, and that's it. And that's your job, and you perform your job. You're here to walk around and do your egoic tasks, which involve having a separate body and a separate mind in order to navigate through this reality. That's what the ego is. That's what it does. So we need it. We need the ego. If we didn't have an ego, you couldn't walk around. You couldn't even tie a shoelace. You couldn't drink a glass of water. I couldn't speak to you, because it's actually through the vehicle of the ego, the body mind, that I'm doing that. How could I speak to you otherwise? If we were totally telepathic and we had no bodies and just a soul communicating telepathically with you, then I could do that. But if I'm using words, the ego is automatically involved. Now, of course, for me, the soul is guiding that. And for other people, the ego would be guiding it. But nonetheless, the ego is the tool, is the body-mind structure. It's a structure. It's a system. And if you are not a victim of that system and you are master of that system, then it's a useful tool, because you couldn't walk or talk or do anything in the third dimension without an ego. If you're just living in the fifth dimension and above, you don't need it. You don't need a body mind. You don't need an ego. Great. But if you're living in the third and fourth dimension, you do. It's just how Earth life is. So I'm just being grounded about it, really.
No, it's fair enough. It's fair enough.
Yeah. So, I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about what the ego is, and also, what enlightenment or awakening is. In their original understanding of it, it was a freedom to use every part of creation, moksha, to use every part of creation, to have great relationships, to be abundant internally and externally, and to be free of the ego and even the soul, to even go beyond the soul. So this was the original understanding of enlightenment and moksha. And then it kind of got twisted and distorted into some kind of let's transcend everything and, you know, not be here kind of false thing that I think a lot of people are still laboring under, like, oh, if I got to be enlightened, I can't be like this or I can't be like that. No, it's like you can be whatever you like. You just don't be attached to any of it, you know? And also, you know, you can't be a victim of the ego in that, you know? The ego has to be the slave. And I think that's really kind of the main thing, is that once the ego is a slave, then you feel that freedom and you feel that sovereignty because you're no longer a victim to that and you're no longer being controlled by it.
I totally agree. And on that note, there is one more that I want to ask you, which is, we've had such a beautiful conversation and it's gone so fast. Unbelievably, it's gone so fast. But I would love for everyone to be able to find you, find your books, find out more about you. Where can they find you?
My website is probably the best place, padmaaon.com, padmaaon.com. But I also have a YouTube channel, which is the same under my name, Padma Aon, and Facebook, I post regularly. Facebook, Padma Aon. Those are kind of my three main places, but obviously my publishers have their websites as well. And all my books are available on Amazon, but also in most good bookstores. So W.H. Smith, I know it's in, and Watkins and Barnes and Noble, and, you know, a lot of the big bookstores, and also the smaller, more boutique bookstores. Most my books will be in, but particularly Shiva's Hologram, the Maheshwar Sutra, which I've been talking about, that is very much in the bookstores pretty much in October the 1st. And so if you're interested in sound healing and the origins of the universe and how the universe was created through sound and how you were created through sound, then that's a book for you.
Definitely. Support. I always say when it comes to writers or anybody in any field to support the creative field, because we need more supporters in there, especially for us to understand exactly what we go through and how we take our time to tell and educate you on things that you might not be able to find in the world, which I find is also so important. But this is where I say to you, thank you so much for taking your time to come on the Ask People podcast with you. It's been an absolute pleasure for you, educating you, being honest, you showing us your freedom of who you are and your free will as a person. Thank you so much for your energy and bringing that to the show.
Oh, thank you so much. I really enjoyed being here. It's been a great flow and it's been really heartful and joyful, and it's been very pleasurable. Thank you.
No, you're more than welcome, guys. This is where I want to say to you, thank you so much for listening to the Ask People podcast. And please remember, you can subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, and any other platform that you prefer listening to. You can also donate to the Ask People podcast by simply going to the Savia Rocks website or going to the Ask People podcast website. Also, guys, thank you so much for listening again. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another. Take care.
Gotta keep my energy and peace of mind. I protect my energy and peace of mind. Gotta keep my energy and peace of mind. Peace of mind, peace of mind. I need a solution. Yeah, I'm done. I'm done with her. Yeah, I'm done. I'm done with confusion. Yeah, I'm done. I need a solution. Peace of mind, peace of mind. Gotta keep my energy and peace of mind. I protect my energy and peace of mind. Gotta keep my energy and peace of mind. Peace of mind, peace of mind. Gotta keep my energy and peace of mind. I protect my energy and peace of mind. Gotta keep my energy and peace of mind. Peace of mind, peace of mind. Gotta keep my energy and peace of mind. I protect my energy and peace of mind. Gotta keep my energy and peace of mind. Peace of mind, peace of mind.
People say that having a peace of mind is trying to find a consistency of calmness within ourselves, to crave for a clarity that drives us through our emotional journey of life, to never let a person's judgment manifest into a fear inside of us, learning to believe in our ability to shine through the darkest moments and tunnels when we cannot see the light. Patience being our light for forgiveness and strength, to believe in our destiny. If you want real peace of mind, one needs to stop fighting their inner thoughts and embrace them with love, because love is the most amazing and beautiful strength that we have to conquer our peace of mind. Make your thoughts impact a nation by keeping them true and honest, especially to yourself, but make your peace of mind protect you when you don't have strength to embrace anything else. Find your peace of mind by listening to your heart.
That's awesome. I really like that philosophy, and I could really feel when you were saying that. I could really feel, your soul purpose and your giving, your dharma, your service in that as well. Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you so much, Savia. It's a pleasure to meet you. I love your energy, and I trust that we will meet again.